Welcome everyone back to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing really well. If you're new around here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and I can't thank you enough for the support. And you can become a member of the channel. Link is in the description to do that. Join a real big growing community of hardcore Pommy and Ozers. There we are. I've given you a nickname. Welcome back. It's great to see you all. I hope we're all doing really well. And we're here to talk about the Carlton versus Essendon game, second versus fifth on the ladder, in what is poised to be an incredibly tenterhook type game for round 13 before Carlton's bye. And this is a real poignant moment in the calendar, isn't it? Because it was around this time last year that we lost to these guys. And the world was not very good, was it? It was death and destruction. It was probably the lowest point. And Essendon probably the last mental stigma in the Blues. They've been here before, and it's kind of synergetic, isn't it? Because we've played Gold Coast around the time we played Essendon. It was Gold Coast where we really got our mojo back. And they probably went into the bye last year lost, where this year they have a real chance here to go into the bye as one of the top four sides in the competition. And what a 12-month turnaround that would be for these boys. And I think mentally, that is a huge, huge, huge little rocket up the old backside to go into the back end of the season with some real drive and energy and vigor and a real feeling of, you know what, I've done it. I've done it. We've done something here where usually at the bye, everyone's asking, can we? Now they believe. And I really see a belief in a professional side. Let's look at the last five. And this is really important when we're looking at the statistical avenues of what we're about to see. The Blues 3-2 in theirs. Losses coming to the Pies and the Swans, who are the best side in the league at the moment. Wins against Melbourne, Gold Coast Suns and Port Adelaide. Last five for Essendon. They've won 4, lost 1. They beat the Eagles, the Giants, North Melbourne and Richmond, and lost to Gold Coast last week. And they've had a few outs, which, I mean, I don't like talking about it because I'm very consistent when our team have injuries. Couldn't give a fuck about injuries. Once you're over the line, you play the game. Your system should be good, and you do it. So the Blues will go into this game, and they've played easily the stronger opposition. So for me, the record is more impressive. And they'll go into this game definitely looking at it, saying, you know what, our statistical avenues are really hot at the minute. I mean, so hot at the moment that Carlton have moved into third of turnover differential. Only Geelong and Sydney are better than them. And that'll be a real big positive. The Blues now really moving into that just below AFL average from defensive half scores, which is a huge improvement considering that they were rock bottom of that 4 or 5 weeks ago. And they've played tough opposition. So when you look at these numbers, really see it. Carlton have played the upper echelon of the league. Essendon have played the bottom. So when we do these last 5, that's a real important avenue. So we've talked about it. Let's get into it. So here we go. Scoring breakdown here, real interesting one. Stoppage scores in the last 5 weeks. Carlton are 6th. They've come up against sides as well in the stoppage differential that are very strong in their own right. So to maintain that is good, but we are seeing a drop-off of this. And that's why you see in the last 5, Carlton have had 3rd most points scored against them. And it's really interesting to note that Essendon have played sides that traditionally give up these stoppage numbers. So that is a really interesting one. Carlton's differential, the 13th best in the league versus the 10th over the last 5. And that's a real positive there for the Blues because they can hurt them. And the makeup of Essendon is very similar in some avenues that we've faced before. But they are playing a side that don't score heavily from stoppage, which is probably the first time we've had that for a while. And the Blues will look at this and go, okay, cool. So we've been a little bit more ostentatious from that stoppage area. So we can still be bold here because we're probably not going to be hurt like we have been in the past. This is a really interesting battle here. And that Zach Merritt versus Chincotta battle for me will be a real key milestone because if Carlton can gain ascendancy there, as we saw in the 4th, it makes everything else free-flowing when they played Port. And even though Carlton were losing the stoppage battle against Port, they never really were majorly threatened from that avenue. They were generating scores themselves from losing the clearance. So this will be an area here where the Blues, where you watch Essendon play, they are susceptible to that panic kick. And that's where the Blues, with their real heavy emphasis on playing Kemp and McGovern higher up the ground, really come into play. And that'll be an area that the Blues will be looking at. Now, the turnover scores, Carlton 8th in the last 5. Bearing in mind, turnover defence, we played 2 of the top 3 in turnover defence. To be in 8th and this rise is a real testament to Voss and what he's trying to do with these boys, particularly over the last 2 weeks. When the Blues get a little bit of their wagging tail, they've looked really threatened. Essendon, real good counter-punch side. With Mason Redman out there, that is a very interesting fact because he is a very, very big component of what Essendon do well. And Essendon are one of them teams at the moment, when you watch them play, they've got a real regimented, stone-walled almost at times, methodology of playing. And he's their second in their intercept marks is Mason Redman. We know Ben Mackay is their leader, but in that area, this is going to be a really interesting little avenue for the Blues of looking to attack the game. And that's why the Blues have the 7th best differential. The third versus the third side in the last 5. But it's really interesting that when you do these numbers across the season, Carlton are 3rd in the league. So that is a really important point where you can see Carlton have been consistent, where Essendon, on the other hand, it's taken that they've monopolised against the weaker opposition. But this is a real key area here because they can hurt you. To get 56 points in the last 5, be 4th best in the league is a worry. So that's where the Blues are really going to have this midfield pressure and really take the game on. The defensive half generation has been really impressive about the Blues because they played 3 of the 5 sides who have real strong forward defence, particularly Port Adelaide last week, who we talked about with the number 1 tackling side inside 50, up against the 6th with the 4th best differential for the Blues versus the 5th. And you can see here, very even, but all these are very even apart from the stoppage against scores. This is going to be a real key battleground of who can counter-punch the best. Both sides like to commit men forward. You would say that Essendon are a little bit more methodical in their means, which gives you space in behind should you take that risky first kick on. And that has been interesting. The Blues have really taken on these presses that they face. And that makes it a really exciting little effort here, I find. I think this is a really intriguing battle here, and one in which I feel the Blues have the advantage, albeit the stats are a little bit warped with the opposition. These are where you can really tell, right? You can really tell a lot about these numbers. And the pressure acts here are intriguing. Carlton, the 14th most pressured side, again, a pressure-inducing side over the last 5 versus the 6th. And that maybe paints a tale because of the opposition you play, because you look Carlton's 3rd against versus the 12th. The sides here have really shown that, and Carlton are really showing. You look at these bottom 5 in the last 5, they generally play sides who are very strong. This is an area that the Blues do fluctuate in the last 5, and it's been more of a case of, I think, to put it down to trying to manage the game, particularly the last 2 weeks. We've really seen an emphasis of trying to manage the game and go from manic pressure to more of a regimented backline approach of being there and cutting off the short and then making you kick. So the pressure acts are less poignant. But this is definitely an area that the Blues have got to do. And the Blues have been so used to pressure over the last couple of weeks that it's starting to become probably a benefit at this time of the year. This is the time that you want to learn, because this is your last chance to have a bye and have a week off where you work on your things. And the Blues have been load tested their system. They have faced hella pressure. It is important to note that the Blues do need to sometimes look for them uncontested possessions, which we have seen the last 2 weeks. Still an area that I want to see. Sometimes they put themselves under pressure, and that's why we've got such a high thing. Essendon are a lot more smarter at times at getting it away and playing on the outside. And that's why you get, people using them lazy analytics of saying, oh, they're not a tough side. you don't want to be tough all the time. You want to have it easy. So that's going to be an interesting avenue. And you can see here that backs up with Carlton being the most tackled side. They have played some very strong opposition where you've got the least tackle side, which shows of who they've played. But the tackles induce Carlton 10th versus 13th. And this really shows you it here that you want them tackle and pressure numbers to kind of be symmetric and be symmetric. Is that a word? I don't know. Symmetrical. There we are. We got there in the end. There isn't many sim words, is there? But you can see here the differential here. It really doesn't stack up. You see Carlton gets so heavily tackled. They've played real high pressure numbers where the second best differential in the league versus Essendon really shows you the pressure they've come up to. And you saw it last week. We know Gold Coast can instill a bit of pressure. They did it against us. And Gold Coast ended up winning, albeit in Gold Coast, you know what I mean, home ground, in their home territory, in a favoured home area. It's very interesting to note that that's where the Blues will be looking at this one. If we can pressure them, we know that Essendon do like that long kick, and that's where we can feast on turnover. And you're looking tackles inside 50, Carlton the most tackled side inside 50 versus the least tackled. Again, this back line, their forward line, isn't used to the pressure that Carlton are going to bring, and Carlton are very used to pressure at the moment. So this is going to be a really intriguing thing because that's a real result I'm proud of. Carlton are one of the most tackled sides, but they're still getting these turnover scores. They're still getting the defensive half. Everything is improving. That is a real sign that when we play a rubbish side or a side that maybe doesn't apply the pressure, you could see hammerings. And we saw that last week against Port when they were slightly off. The Blues went to work. And these are the numbers here that you look at with the Blues and that we should be proud of. The third best goals per inside 50 against some of the best defending sides in the league. Marks inside 50 pretty even. And you can see Carlton, this is a big important stat. The 15th hardest side to mark against sides that are traditionally pretty strong to mark inside 50. And that's the transition from being a marking side, an intercept marking side, to playing to a bit more of our one-woods, which is our players that are good on the deck and bring in the spoils. It's a safer play with the Blues because the Blues do concede a lot of attempted marks that become spoils. And this is a big shift in Voss in the last 5 weeks. And it's starting to show on the stat sheet, which is a real impressive thing, that the Blues look to spoil it and then take the game on and not allow you to set up. So this is going to be a real key avenue of attack. And the goals inside 50 have been really strong recently, particularly with the advent of Zach Williams being a small forward. The scores inside 50, you can see the 7th best versus the 16th and pretty even on against. Both sides have got real strong methods, but Essendon are a more marking side than they're a spoiling side when they defend. Carlton do look to spoil first and defend and mark when it's easier or when the opportunities present. They are a spoil first side. This is a real key avenue. If Carlton can get the ball deep, and deep, they have got some real problems down the back at Essendon because I don't think players like Laverty and Ben Mackay can cope with the pressure that Harry and Charlie will bring. Defensive resistance, Carlton the 6th best side at rebounding your inside 50s versus the 10th. And Carlton, one of the hardest sides, the second hardest side in the league to rebound against versus the second worst. So the easiest to rebound. This is a really impressive little stat here for the Blues, where the Blues will be looking here to really monopolise that and look to take the game on. What that effectively means that 80% of the inside 50s that Essendon have are rebounded, where only 71% of the Blues. So that's going to be a real strong avenue there. The Blues can create these repeat inside 50s, but they don't need to. They can hemorrhage it in and create stoppage, and that's where Carlton have been developing a lot of stoppages recently in the front half of the ground. And that's why you see Kemp and McGovern kicking goals last week, because they commit more men forward, looking for you to bomb it out of 50. And that's where we set up our traps. And there's been a lot of Cowan, McGovern, and Kemp inside 50s on the back of that. Intercept marks, you can see here, Carlton have really strayed from that. That's partly because they're playing Whittaker in deep. They're looking to spoil and bring it to ground, but also the fact that the Blues are really looking to up their intercept possessions from taking them short handballs away. That's been a real big change in the Blues defence as well. They're looking to stop the run and stun. They're not so bothered about you kicking it inside 50. And the second most intercept marks, and that's no surprise, Ridley's come back. They've got Ben Mackay, they've got Laverde, they've got a lot of intercept markers. They've got Mason Redman, who will be missing this week. And they've been playing sides that hit shallow opposition, that's shallow entries in the last 5. That's where the Blues have really got to make sure it's a deep, deep entry. And one-on-one loss, Carlton, the 7th best one-on-one loss. Real hard when they're one-on-one, that they're in the top echelon versus one of the easy sides to beat one-on-one. 2% doesn't sound like a lot. It is in the grand scheme of things. But all in all here, this is basically a tale of do what you've done the last 5 weeks, and the Blues win this one by 10 to 20. This is going to be a real good game. Real good game. There's a lot on the line. And I don't think that this is going to be one of them games that's played in a blowout. I think this is going to be a real tentative affair. Both sides need to win this because I feel like whoever wins this guarantees themselves a top 4 spot at the end of the year. I feel like that's how the ladder is going, that it seems to be win one, lose one, win one, lose one. This gives you the jump. This is the first time that 2 sides that potentially can be the top 4 really face off towards the pointy end of the season. And we're now at that pointy end of the season. I feel like this is a big one where 2 sides are probably fighting for that 4th spot. And this could be one of the eliminators. So it's going to be a real furnace affair. I'm really confident about this one. Really, really confident. I feel like the Blues have really proved something here, and we're going to see a real professional Carlton outfit. Can't wait to see it. I fucking hate Essendon, so I'm trying to be as nice as possible. But signs are good for the Blues. Go out there, do your job, execute, go home with 4 points, enjoy your week break, and then it's on to Geelong to right the wrong from a couple of weeks ago. Peace, love, and light, everyone. Palm out.
I see her rolling up, Uber black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad, oh baby's hella